Bueno, con esta guitarra tuve el honor de tocar en el Palau de la Música en el 50 aniversario de Manufacturas Alhambra y es la guitarra de siricote, el modelo aniversario. Es de cedro y los aros y el fondo son de siricote y la verdad es que tiene toda la gama y las sutilezas tímbricas del cedro aprovechadas al máximo y toda la potencia, y un concierto sin amplificación perfectamente cómodo me sentí con esta guitarra.
I'm David Freeman, the owner of Timeless Instruments and a luthier of 40 years. I operate a luthier training school graduating over 650 students since 1986. I have a vast selection of woods for builders on my website and a personal select assortment for my custom builds. This is Curly Hawaiian Koa back and sides. Tonally, it creates a warmer sound than the rosewoods. The top is a Master Engelmann spruce with a jacaranda rosewood bridge and an ebony fingerboard. There's a bone nut and saddle, all trimmed with curly maple binding. The neck is Spanish cedar and the finish a French polish. The treble side is narrower to facilitate the smaller treble sound waves. The bass side deeper for the larger bass sound waves. This creates a separation in the sound waves that couples with the separation of the fan bracing system inside. The top is rolled over for an armrest so that the player doesn't feel that extra space. It is very comfortable, functional, and aesthetically appealing. The wedge opens up space for the midsection, resulting in a balanced response from the low bass through the middle to the high treble. There is a side port with a sliding door. This allows you to change the fundamental of the body, affecting the tone for a unidirectional projection, or open it for an omnidirectional projection. You could use it for stereo miking or simply as a monitor in an ensemble. This is the side port closed. This is it half open. And this is it fully open. The difference is noticeable. The evolution of this model includes a 24 fret cutaway style so that you can access that. The sound hole is moved over so that it doesn't get in the way of the 24 frets. I am a custom builder. I work with the player to create an instrument that is responsive to the individual. If you're interested in playing some of my instruments, contact me through the website and we'll discuss the best options. Enjoy the virtual GFA 2020 convention. Thank you.
Good afternoon and welcome back to the 2020 GFA Virtual Convention. We have lots of great content coming up for you this afternoon, starting off with two concerts back-to-back by Goran Krivokapic and Pablo Garibay. These concerts are sponsored by Guitar Lift. Then we will go to a Masterclass with Eduardo Fernandez, sponsored by Augustine. And we'll finish out the block with a lecture, followed by a live Q&A with Anthony LaLena. So as soon as you lose my video here, you're going to see a video of our sponsor, and then we're going to cut straight to, I'm so excited, a live introduction with Goran, who is staying awake late these hours in Germany to greet you and personally introduce his concert. Enjoy the afternoon.
Hi, I'm John. We're at Strings by Mail, where we're going to show you the latest in the development of the last several centuries of ways guitarists have found to get their guitar up in the position that they like it with a minimal stress on the body. This is called the guitar lift, and it does lift the guitar well. You've got 5 flavors here. All of these come in either clear or black plexiglass. The originals, the big, the medium, and the small, and the newer innovations, the half plate and the crossover. Basically what we're looking at is the difference in how high it lifts the guitar. For most people, this medium, which has a maximum lift of essentially 6 inches, is what's going to work best. For some people with a particularly long torso, maybe a 22, 24 inch torso, or a lot of height, they might be better off with the big. You can get a maximum lift of about 9 inches on this one. And this little guy, it's really for kids. 4-inch lift should be plenty for most children to get their guitar up in position. Now, over here, the half plate, the idea here is that some players felt like having this be their main point of contact with the instrument wasn't as natural, and they asked, hey, how about one that's shorter? That's what this is for. Now it's going to end down in here and your chest can be in contact with the guitar. And over here, the crossover, the idea here is that it's for flamenco players. It works well for the flamenco position on the right leg, but it can't fit over on the left leg. And the softer arc to the point of contact makes that possible. Now it has a minimum amount of lift, but that's pretty fitting to the average flamenco player's position, which is much flatter for the guitar. The half, maximum lift about 5 inches, the small 4 as we said, the medium 6, and the big 9. There is a factor here though. When you change the angle of the guitar with a flatter angle, you're going to get a little more lift, 1/2 inch to 1 inch above these figures. It's a nice package. It comes with a manual. It comes with a nice looking decal. It comes with the suction cup protectors that they provide. And it comes with a custom wrench. Now, these suction cup protectors you may want to use, or you may want to get something that's been in the market a long time. We've all tried it, the Klingon. Taking a look more closely at the way they work, I want to show you how easy it is to put it on the guitar. Now, it may take you a few times to find exactly how and where you want it. But once you do, boom, you're in business. It's ready to go. Now, the use for the wrench is necessary because when you want to get more lift, basically what you're doing is you're going to push this down further. Well, at some point the cups are going to run into the edge of the guitar and fall off the guitar. So that has to be moved up for more lift. The cups come up. And now an opportunity to show you how this nice little proprietary wrench works. Basically, you just slip it right on the nut, fits perfectly, give it a few spins, it's loose, and then you can spin it off with your finger. Tighten it back up, get it finger tight, put the wrench back on, and boom, good to go. So it's a nice package. There are some nice options here. And the next thing we want to do is show you what they look like on the guitar. So we're going to demonstrate each of the big, medium, and half plate for you.
Hello everybody, all the musicians, guitarists, guitar lovers. Greetings to you wherever you might be at the moment. I hope you are healthy and well. I'm here right now at my home in Cologne in Germany, and it is about 10 past midnight here. I'd like to express my gratitude about how fantastic it is to still have this online event like this, and I think it is really a huge achievement of Marta and Lynn and Brian and Ryan and everybody at GFA to have to put up such a fantastic lineup of events and to have such great performers this week and great workshops. And it is really, I feel really special to be part of this. This week I'm also thinking about a friend of mine who we lost, Sabrina Vlašković, who was also supposed to be part of this guitar convention. And why I remember her is because this is one of the last things I could remember about her, how extremely excited and positive she was about performing at this GFA convention. So the piece that I'm going to play, I would like to dedicate to her, and it is a sonata by Antonio Jose, who, just as Sabrina, was taken away from us much too early. I hope you'll enjoy it.
Hi, I'm John. We're at Strings by Mail, where we're going to show you the latest in the development of the last several centuries of ways guitarists have found to get their guitar up in the position that they like it with a minimal stress on the body. This is called the guitar lift, and it does lift the guitar well. You've got 5 flavors here. All of these come in either clear or black plexiglass. The originals, the big, the medium, and the small, and the newer innovations, the half plate and the crossover. Basically what we're looking at is the difference in how high it lifts the guitar. For most people, this medium, which has a maximum lift of essentially 6 inches, is what's going to work best. For some people with a particularly long torso, maybe a 22, 24 inch torso, or a lot of height, they might be better off with the big. You can get a maximum lift of about 9 inches on this one. And this little guy, it's really for kids. 4-inch lift should be plenty for most children to get their guitar up in position. Now, over here, the half plate, the idea here is that some players felt like having this be their main point of contact with the instrument wasn't as natural, and they asked, hey, how about one that's shorter? That's what this is for. Now it's going to end down in here and your chest can be in contact with the guitar. And over here, the crossover, the idea here is that it's for flamenco players. It works well for the flamenco position on the right leg, but it can't fit over on the left leg. And the softer arc to the point of contact makes that possible. Now it has a minimum amount of lift, but that's pretty fitting to the average flamenco player's position, which is much flatter for the guitar. The half, maximum lift about 5 inches, the small 4 as we said, the medium 6, and the big 9. There is a factor here though. When you change the angle of the guitar with a flatter angle, you're going to get a little more lift, 1/2 inch to 1 inch above these figures. It's a nice package. It comes with a manual. It comes with a nice looking decal. It comes with the suction cup protectors that they provide. And it comes with a custom wrench. Now, these suction cup protectors you may want to use, or you may want to get something that's been in the market a long time. We've all tried it, the Klingon. Taking a look more closely at the way they work, I want to show you how easy it is to put it on the guitar. Now, it may take you a few times to find exactly how and where you want it. But once you do, boom, you're in business. It's ready to go. Now, the use for the wrench is necessary because when you want to get more lift, basically what you're doing is you're going to push this down further. Well, at some point the cups are going to run into the edge of the guitar and fall off the guitar. So that has to be moved up for more lift. The cups come up. And now an opportunity to show you how this nice little proprietary wrench works. Basically, you just slip it right on the nut, fits perfectly, give it a few spins, it's loose, and then you can spin it off with your finger. Tighten it back up, get it finger tight, put the wrench back on, and boom, good to go. So it's a nice package. There are some nice options here. And the next thing we want to do is show you what they look like on the guitar. So we're going to demonstrate each of the big, medium, and half plate for you.
Hello, my name is Brad DeRoche, and I'm a Board of Trustees member for the Guitar Foundation of America, the GFA. I live in Mount Pleasant, Michigan, where I am a concert artist and educator. I've been teaching at Delta College, where I'm a professor of music, for over 30 years now. I've also initiated a number of guitar programs over the years, ranging from academy and university degree programs to summer programs for young adults, from a long-standing concert series to weekend guitar festivals, from my own personal concerts to a growing guitar society and more. And I've done these things because I believe in the importance of having the fine arts in our communities, especially the classical guitar. And it's been my mission to keep this most beautiful of instruments, the classical guitar, growing and thriving part of our culture. The GFA has given me a great deal of inspiration over the years, from the pages of the Soundboard magazine with its informative and scholarly articles, to the amazing conventions that are held each year where you get to hear world-class performers, go to extraordinary lectures and master classes, hear some of the greatest young talent in the world compete in the competitions, to see incredible instruments built by some of the world's finest luthiers, the most up-to-date gadgets and gizmos for guitarists in the vendors fair, the great manufacturers and sheet music publishers and retailers, and so much more. Also, the camaraderie that you get from being there. Some of the people I've met at the GFA conventions over the years have become lifelong friends. Some of the most special moments I've cherished from those events over the years is meeting people. And finally, just being a part of this incredible organization. It's really inspiring to be a part of it and know that you're a part of something that has a very important mission. So this year, we have something very unique to offer you. But first, if you're not already a member of the GFA, I'd love for you to consider being a member. We want you to sign up for the GFA. You can go to our website, which is www.guitarfoundation.org. www.guitarfoundation.org, and you'll see a member sign up there if you would like to become a member. You can also attend this year's event absolutely free of charge. It's an extraordinary thing that we're bringing to you this year, and we hope that you will take part in that. But as you know, bringing you an event such as this incredible convention with concerts by world-class artists, lectures, presentations, master classes, the competition for young people, all those things do come at a cost. And so we would love it if you would consider donating to our organization. Again, we believe it's a very worthwhile organization, and your tax-free deductible donation would be of such great help. So you can go to our website and you'll find a place where you can donate, or you can use the link for PayPal that you'll see on this site. So this event that's happening this year is unique and very special, as our times are very unique and very special. And we hope that you will take some time out of your daily life and be with us this summer for this incredible event. And also, if you like this, we're hoping that you will attend our events every year and become a member and see and experience all the great things that the GFA does. So with that, I would like to thank you for your time, for your consideration and your generosity, and we hope to see you at our events now and in the future. Thank you so much. Cheers.
Hey guys, we're Carmen
and Uroš.
and today we met at Baro's studio to try out all the different flavors of Augustine treble strings. We always seem to be chasing that perfect sound, and with this video we really hope we can help you choose the perfect set of Augustine strings for you and your guitar.
We'll be trying out 4 different treble string models: Classic, Imperial, Regal and Paragon. Classic sets are the original Augustine strings, the ones Segovia played.
Imperial and Regal sets have all of the familiar luxurious attributes, but with modern enhancements that allow the player to push their performance to new heights. The newest set, Paragon, has the benefits of carbon strings, such as high volume and good projection, but also has this unique organic warmth of the sound that we were only used to getting with nylon strings before. Okay, so let's get to it.
The Classic set was actually the big surprise of the day for me. They have this sort of a velvety, darker tone that reminds me of the old masters, of older recordings, and the sound I found very charming. Vibrato is very easy to make, and it sounds
definitely.
actually very good.
From the player's perspective, I felt it was very easy to play. It's very easy on the fingers.
Comfortable, yeah.
Yeah, very, very comfortable. I think Imperial was my favorite one because it has really good projection, also very powerful and everything, but it just suits my guitar best. Imperial, I would say something between Regal and Classic. It still has the kind of sweetness, nice sound from Classic, but it also has more power.
I fell in love with Regal strings, Regal blue strings, and I use them on my guitar.
If I were to play in a really big hall where the acoustic is pretty bad and I would need that extra kind of kick, I would go for Regal again. I'm quite used to them, and for such occasions, or even playing chamber music with other instruments that are louder than guitar, where you really need this extra kick. Which leaves us with the newest set that we also tried for the first time today,
yeah.
Paragon. Yeah, exactly. What did you think?
I loved it actually. For live use, I think it's amazing because it has a good projection. And the big pro in general of carbon strings is that you get an amazing balance between the basses and the trebles. So the basses are never overwhelmingly loud compared to the trebles.
Yeah, I also noticed that.
So this is the big pro. Another one is that if you are playing in environment with slightly worse acoustic or a big hall, you need a projection that punches through to the last row. So in those occasions, I would happily use Paragon.
We really hope you enjoyed this video, and we're positive you can now choose your perfect set of Augustine strings.
So which one did you like most?
Let us know in the comment section below.
Also, don't forget to like, share and subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this in the future.
Well, very, very nice. Wow.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Nice sound and very sensitive.
Thank you.
There might be some conceptual things to talk about.
Yeah.
I think you need to be more aware of rhythm.
Oh, okay.
It's not a free-for-all in rubato dance. And even when nothing seems to happen, nothing is part of the scene of what we need to have.
Yeah.
So let's try to play in tempo.
Yeah.
I show you if I can share a screen. Maybe score 1 second.
Yeah, sure.
I cannot do it. Okay. Never mind. Let's try again from the beginning. Okay? Don't worry if you make mistakes. It's okay.
Okay.
It's part of the thing. In this maybe you can some variation in dynamic.
Okay.
Like, see, the G has a lot more tension.
Okay.
We have the bass as A.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be more interesting, I think.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Also, what comes after, so.
Yeah.
Think it this way. Maybe you can think.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the rest is ornamentation.
Okay.
An accent on the F.
Okay. Sorry. The internet is a little bit
Please,
poor.
please don't accent the F after the
Oh yeah. Oh, okay.
Just play the scale once. Try to listen for the sound of the G.
Yeah.
As it plays away. And play the F in that dynamic. So, yeah. Not.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right.
Thank you.
Let's do this first phrase once more.
Okay.
See, the phrase doesn't begin again on the. It goes
Yeah.
to the G, F. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're making it begin again with the accent.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Try to listen for the G.
Yeah.
How loud it is when it comes the time to play the F.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just connect it with the G.
Understand.
And also we
It's
need.
kind of.
Don't lose the beat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
This second phrase, of course, has more tension because we go higher to the B flat. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
More, yeah.
Sorry.
You don't need a ralentando there.
Oh, okay.
These chords are just like fog.
Okay. Yeah.
It does as legato as possible. Arpeggiate the last one.
Yeah.
It's all like a string group, playing together with sordina, so very soft and foggy. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
As legato as you can.
Okay.
You can't get away with the ralentando,
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry. I will try again. Sorry, I'm sorry. Oh.
In the beats. No ralentando. You don't need a ralentando.
Okay.
See, this is this nothing that happens in this succession of chords.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's no fermata.
Yeah, sure.
We need this. We need this melodic line, the flamenco that comes now, to just fuse with the chords.
Okay.
Please keep the pulse. We need to know that this we have A.
Yeah.
Not definite. Next beat or what it is. So we need to anyway.
Okay.
Don't rush. Play the tempo.
Okay.
On tempo.
Tempo, yeah.
We have pum, 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 pum. No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just on tempo.
Okay. It's kind of like this.
No, yeah, much better. Here the bass harmony as E.
Yeah.
So we have A is tenser than the bass. So also dynamic variation, not everything equal.
Yeah.
The A is the main note.
Oh yeah, sorry.
So now you're rushing it. You know, just play it on tempo.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, this chord is part of a chord. Play it on tempo because otherwise it's like a cadenza.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you need to feel the beat.
Okay.
Wait.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
You don't need just. I'll leave it sounding. I will put it actually on 50.
Okay.
Very short.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I'm a little bit nervous.
Hit the pulse. I know I'm asking for something very different. So don't worry. You know, you won't get it the time.
Okay.
Okay, it's okay, perfectly okay. But keep the tempo. One.
Yeah.
One,
Sure.
2, 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't accept the flat.
Yeah.
It comes from A.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. You can do some rubato maybe. As long as we keep the basic chords. See, we have
yeah. Yeah.
you're playing it like a cadenza. You know?
Yeah.
The 3. Don't worry now. Let's go on to the next.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, very, very nice. Maybe we need more difference in dynamics between. And then
Okay. Yeah.
think of string pizzicapi
Mm-hmm.
and then voice.
Yeah. I understand. Yeah. So it's like this kind of
Same
style?
idea as before.
Oh yeah.
The G is a note with tension.
Yeah.
You dance around this G with the ornamentation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you go higher.
Yeah. Sorry.
As legato as possible. As
Yeah, okay.
legato as possible. Voice, it's a Camarón de la Isla, not Paco de Lucía.
Okay. Yeah.
Voice, not guitar. So,
Yeah.
yeah. More tension. We need more tension on the B flat,
Yeah.
not the A. So
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
it's okay. Very nice. Bravo. Go on.
Yeah.
Now this change from B flat to B natural,
Yeah.
the melody, maybe you can emphasize a little bit. Since it is
Okay.
pianissimo,
Uh.
it's like an echo of the phrase before.
Uh.
It is a benign echo, a good echo, and not the tension that you had before.
Okay.
Say you have the flamenco singer doing the first time with the
Yeah.
B flat,
Mm-hmm.
and the angels maybe
Yeah.
with the B natural.
Okay. Sorry. Or should I do?
Keep pianissimo.
Okay. Yeah.
We need to. It's
Oh yeah. Sorry.
it's not 15s. So keep the beat.
Yeah.
Try not to accent the F sharp.
Okay.
The G is the note tension, and it comes from it.
Yeah. Sorry.
Very nice.
Sorry. Sorry. It's a little bit tricky.
I know. It's easy to change things like this.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Okay.
Don't worry now. Go on.
Okay.
It's even slower. Keep the tempo.
Yeah.
This section. I think you don't know very much what to do with it. So you're accent singing and making a lot of it.
Yeah.
Making nothing of it. Playing tempo, and it's all background.
Okay.
Yeah? Think of fog in the hills of Granada or whatever. You know? So,
Yeah.
no pathos, no big emotion, just background.
Okay.
Clouds moving.
Yeah. Sorry.
Faster, in the same tempo. Yeah. 2, 3, 1.
Okay.
Piano. Everything piano.
Okay.
All in the background.
Okay.
Mystery with Please don't rush. You're playing a lot faster than the basic tempo.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
You can work on it later. Let's go on now. But
Okay.
all this section is background.
Okay.
Don't try to make a big area out of it.
Yeah.
You don't have enough material to do that. You know?
Okay. Got it. Yeah.
Let's You're doing this graduation of dynamics is okay, but please
Okay.
take it 5 degrees lower.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, let's go on. Here, when you get to the A, you can go from 5-piece to 3-piece.
5-piece.
So from P, super pianissimo, to
Yeah.
pianissimo. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Don't rush. Don't rush.
Okay.
Keep.
Oh no. Sorry.
If you can do the chords in such a way that we have legato and no strings, no open strings sounding.
Oh, okay.
So we follow we need to follow all the voices of the chords.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe it's even better if you go all with the same fingering on the strings, like.
Okay.
So no open strings on the G chord. I mean, no open strings on the G chord.
Oh, okay.
Something like that. Don't arpegiate. We need this feeling of a group of strings playing together.
Okay.
It's a color. So if you put one open string chord, we break this illusion.
Yeah. Got it. So. Sorry.
You can try playing that one chord.
Yeah. Okay.
Just want to imitate it. But because you destroy this illusion of string group.
Oh, okay.
You're playing harp instead of strings, you know. So
yeah,
the chords together.
Okay, but there is a 5. Oh, okay. Yeah, because they have like a 5 notes, so. Oh,
Well,
okay.
fake it so it comes together.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Ah. May I ask a question about this
Yeah,
chord?
please.
So this chord, I mean, on this music score should be like this. So G sharp, and many people play, I think, maybe like this chord.
I'm just checking with the score.
Yeah.
Which chord do you mean? Can you play this sequence again?
So.
No, it has B natural. It's G natural.
Oh, it's G natural.
Of course.
Ah, okay.
You see, it's all second inversions of chords. Yeah. Then
Yeah.
alternate with.
Understand. Yeah.
You see, it's the same you had before.
Yeah.
Only this time it goes in reverse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like an arc. Yeah. Like,
yeah.
Of course, no fermata in this chord.
Yeah, sorry. Play more.
Same problem as before.
Okay.
It's very much in tempo, very calm,
Okay.
very mysterious. And please don't try to make it interesting.
Yeah, sure. Sorry.
You see now the thing of Copia.
Yeah, sir.
But you have to understand why he did this. He doesn't do this portamento because it would be too vocal.
Ah,
it would
okay.
be too much voice. See, like Italian tenor. It's completely out of the idea.
Ah, okay.
But he wants. Very subtle, very.
Yeah, okay.
Same tempo, please.
Yeah.
Don't rush.
Sorry, I will try this. Yeah.
I'm completely changing the things. So don't. Of course, it's not going to come out the first time. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Basic idea is keep the tempo in all this passage.
Yeah.
Even if you sing on the third,
Okay.
A very small rallentando at the end.
Yeah.
But always with tempo.
Yeah.
This phrase. It's all one phrase, the two measures.
Yeah. Okay.
You see, we have this piano on this chord.
Yeah.
But before we were still softer.
Oh, okay.
So it is a kind of a little accent.
Okay.
Maybe you can do some vibrato on the chord.
Okay.
Mark this. rubato.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Wait.
I think we have this forte on the second chord.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it applies just to the chord. Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Because otherwise it makes no sense, you know. So we have.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Sorry. Like this. So just apply this for
Yes. As smooth as possible, the transition.
Okay.
Back to the main.
Okay. Should I continue or?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Oh, sorry. It's the beginning. Back to the beginning. Yeah.
Well, what is very important is we have to understand the pulse also.
Yeah.
So if you take too slow at the beginning, we think it is 8 notes, you know, and we don't understand the idea. So,
Okay.
Okay, same as before, you see.
Yeah, sorry.
Please count.
Yeah. Sorry.
You really need to count. Not.
Yeah.
Don't rush. No. I mean, just play it in tempo.
Yeah.
Da da da, bum 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 bum.
Yeah.
You're starting earlier. Do the 3, 2, bum bum.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, he's back again.
We don't have much time, so maybe I should give you just some ideas for what is left of this movement.
Yeah.
Yeah. In look at the score.
Yeah.
You see, we have this forte. This is now it is a lot stronger than it was before. This.
Yeah.
But it's always voice, and the big tension will be when you get to the bass, to the B flat in the bass.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you have to accent the notes in this dotted rhythm.
Okay.
Don't make a big thing of the scale that follows.
Yeah.
And then we have the same voice, but now with harmonic support.
Okay. Yeah.
And then the molto espressivo, the last 2 lines.
Yeah.
it is the same thing we had before with. Yeah, now.
Yeah.
But still sweeter than the first time.
Okay.
And please play in tempo until the end.
Yeah.
Only in the last 3 bars you have this lentamente.
Yeah.
Slower. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a movement that takes a great deal of patience.
Yeah.
You know, you really have to contain yourself.
Yes, sir.
But it's going to be a lot more expressive if you can contain this and keep yourself from singing out things.
Yeah.
And okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, we're Carmen
and Uroš,
and today we met at Baro's studio to try out all the different flavors of Augustine treble strings. We always seem to be chasing that perfect sound, and with this video we really hope we can help you choose the perfect set of Augustine strings for you and your guitar.
trying out 4 different treble string models: Classic, Imperial, Regal and Paragon. Classic sets are the original Augustine strings, the ones Segovia played.
Imperial and Regal sets have all of the familiar luxurious attributes, but with modern enhancements that allow the player to push their performance to new heights. The newest set, Paragon, has the benefits of carbon strings, such as high volume and good projection, but also has this unique organic warmth of the sound that we were only used to getting with nylon strings before. Okay, so let's get to it.
The classic set was actually the big surprise of the day for me. They have this sort of a velvety, darker tone that reminds me of the old masters, of older recordings, and the sound I found very charming. Vibrato is very easy to make, and it sounds
definitely.
actually very good.
From the player's perspective, I felt it was very easy to play. It's very easy on the fingers.
Comfortable, yeah.
Very, very comfortable. I think Imperial was my favorite one because it has really good projection, also very powerful and everything, but it just suits my guitar best. Imperial, I would say something between Regal and Classic. It still has the kind of sweetness, nice sound from Classic, but it also has more power.
I fell in love with Regal strings, Regal blue strings, and I use them on my guitar.
If I were to play in a really big hall where the acoustic is pretty bad and I would need that extra kind of kick, I would go for Regal again. I'm quite used to them, and for such occasions, or even playing chamber music with other instruments that are louder than guitar, where you really need this extra kick. Which leaves us with the newest set that we also tried for the first time today, Paragon. Yeah, exactly. What did you think?
I loved it actually. For live use, I think it's amazing because it has a good projection, and the big pro in general of carbon strings is that you get an amazing balance between the basses and the trebles. So the basses are never overwhelmingly loud compared to the trebles.
Yeah, I also noticed that.
So this is the big pro. Another one is that if you are playing in an environment with slightly worse acoustic or a big hall, you need a projection that punches through to the last row. So in those occasions, I would happily use Paragon.
We really hope you enjoyed this video, and we're positive you can now choose your perfect set of Augustine strings.
So which one did you like most?
Let us know in the comment section below.
Also, don't forget to like, share and subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this in the future.
Hi, I'm Stephen Mattingly, Associate Professor of Guitar at the University of Louisville, and I'm honored to serve the Guitar Foundation of America as its current chair of the Board of Trustees. I'm joining you here today during our times of social distancing from my farm just outside town in sunny Louisville, Kentucky. And I'm hoping so much that we'll be able to enjoy the sense of community that we all gain from the GFA convention this coming Sunday, June 21st, when we will have the opening remarks online. More information about all of that is at guitarfoundation.org. I'm also hoping to share with you today a little bit about what the GFA and the guitar mean to me. The recent experiences that we've had in thinking back to what our sense of community is and what it will be in the future, I'm thinking about the guitar as a vessel. It's a vessel of discovery. That is one of many things that it means to me, of course, but as a student of lifelong learning and as an artist, to me it is that medium through which I can express my art to the broader community, and that I can share with friends and express those most intimate emotions or experiences that I may wish to communicate to the broader world. It's also a vessel of exploration, of escape, and I think that is something that is important, that the instrument pays no mind and does not care whether I'm young or old, whether I'm male, female, what my race is, what my socioeconomic status is. It cares only that I express my art with genuine sentiment, and that I express it well, I guess, is important too. The Guitar Foundation of America is more than an entity, more than an organization. It is really the people that make up the GFA. Its members, its audience, all of those who love the guitar as an aficionado, as a student, as a professional musician. It's that community that we build and friends that we make through the events that the GFA puts on, whether it's sharing in the Rose Augustine Prize Winner Tour, sharing those concerts, going to the convention or a regional symposium when it's nearby. For me, I was thinking back about the eagerness with which I awaited receiving those issues of Soundboard magazine when I was a student. And there was one particular issue that stood out in my mind. It was this winter of '97 issue. I was looking back at that today and found to wonderful surprise that the article that most inspired me out of this particular issue was this lesson with Oscar Gilia, and it was conducted in an interview format by Pam Kimmel. I've had the honor of serving on the GFA board with for so many years. This is a must-read article and has wonderful insights to guitar technique and expression in general. I was also delighted to find that it has a lovely little transcription of Robert Schumann's The Merry Farmer. So, since I'm joining you here from my farm in Kentucky, I thought I'd play you out with a little bit of the tune.
I'd like to start this lecture with just a word about the format and the attached handout and slides that I would have presented in person, but I'm sending to you all as a PDF along with the handout in lieu of in-person lecture. The handout has lots of figures I refer to throughout the lecture, and the slides accompany the lecture and provide some more biographical information on the composers that I don't get to in this lecture. Now, the format of the lecture is somewhat unusual in that, unlike a standard lecture recital, I'm not speaking and then about a piece and then playing the piece at the end. I'm going to speak about many pieces and sort of interject the lecture with the performances of the pieces. That being said, because of the slightly shortened format of this online lecture, I'm only going to be playing the pieces on the lecture that are more or less unknown. So I hope that you are familiar with the pieces on the lecture that are more famous, like the Torroba Sonatina and the Torina Sevillana. Great, so with that out of the way, let's get started. So the decade between 1920 and 1930 was a particularly tumultuous time in Spanish history, both politically and culturally. It was couched within an era that was known as the Edad de Plata, or the Silver Age of Spain. This era, bookmarked by the end of the Spanish-American War in 1898 and the beginning of the Spanish Civil War in 1936, saw two attempts at a monarchy, two dictatorships, one republic, and the loss of the last of Spain's colonial possessions. It is often remarked that such instability prompted an existential crisis among intellectuals, forcing them to ask, what exactly is Spain? Spanish artists and intellectuals took up their pens and spilled copious amounts of ink in both words and music, searching for the Spanish soul, but reached largely divergent conclusions. Manuel de Falla himself remarked, quote, Spanish composers have never before shown so deep a conviction of national values, yet never before have the critics, some at least, accursed them, as they do now, of betraying these values." End quote. It is my proposition that in a political and cultural atmosphere where the question of national identity was of premier importance, when major Spanish composers wrote their first works for the guitar, which is an instrument so indelibly tied to Spanish culture and history, they were performing an intensely political act that can speak volumes not only about how these composers understood the guitar as a national instrument, but also how they viewed Spanish cultural identity more broadly. I would like to frame the debates about Spanish identity within the ideas of two of the most prominent Spanish philosophers of the Silver Age, Miguel de Unamuno and José Ortega y Gasset. Unamuno, novelist and philosopher of what was known in Spanish historiography as the generation of 1898, preached a kind of cultural isolationism that sought to find the essence of Spain among its own people and history. His views are summarized in his 1895 collection of essays, En torno al castísimo, which is on the essence of pure Spanishness. He contends that European modes of thinking should only be adopted insofar as they preserve the unique essence of Spain. We can see a visual representation of Unamuno's Castísimo in the paintings of a contemporary, Ramón Casas, which is provided in the slides. Casas paints in the tradition of French realism and early Impressionism, but with the earthy color palettes of canonic Spanish painters Diego Velázquez and Francisco Goya, thereby creating recognizably Spanish images through the use of European artistic trends. A musical corollary can be drawn to the work of Spanish composers Federico Moreno Torroba, Joaquín Rodrigo, and Joaquín Turina, who utilized the conservative compositional methods of French composers Vicent d'Indy and the Schola Cantorum to work with traditional harmonies, folk melodies, and early Spanish music. Contesting Unamuno and the adherents of Castísimo was a younger group of intellectuals known as the Generation of 1927, who were broadly influenced by the ideas of philosopher José Ortega y Gasset. Ortega was a staunch supporter of modernism in the arts and believed that the new generation of intellectuals could remake the image of Spain into that of a modern European nation. In other words, a unique Spanish identity was still a necessary construct for Ortega and his followers, but not one built on maintaining difference alone. The new modernist artistic movements like Cubism and Neoclassicism looked to establish a quote-unquote universal discourse across European borders, rather than an internal conversation with local folkloric material, as much of the regionalism in Spain at the time sort of attested to. Ortega's famous 1925 essay, The Dehumanization of Art, offers us a framework through which to view the Spanish composers sympathetic to avant-garde trends, including the composers of what was known as El Grupo de los Ocho, which is an homage to Les Six, and other composers, Adolfo Salazar and Manuel de Falla, who functioned as their figureheads. The dehumanization of modern art, musicologist Eva Morera Rodriguez argues, was a, quote, reaction against romanticism and a way to avoid sentimentalism, end quote. In the words of Rodolfo Halfter, a composer of the Grupo and the last piece on this program, he called it a way to avoid primary feelings. Ortega privileged this new art as a plaything that could, quote, save the men from the seriousness of life, end quote. Overall, it was a stylized and sardonic art that emotionally distanced the viewer, much like the music of Igor Stravinsky or the Cubist paintings of Pablo Picasso. These cold mechanical works of artifice did not sit well with the Romantic composers and critics, who often claim that such a, quote, excessive affection for the modern results in the absolute lack of the Spanish soul, end quote. And this was from an anonymous review in Spain at the time of Falla's ballet, The Three-Cornered Hat. So if you know that work, you could fill in the gaps there about how ridiculous that sounds in retrospect. With a knowledge of the philosophical debates on Spanish identity and the art of the Silver Age, we can more clearly understand the complex musical negotiations of identity in which the composers presented on tonight's program partook. Works for the guitar are particularly suited for this project because of its ubiquitous status as a national instrument of Spain in both folk and classical traditions. Manuel de Falla even wrote of the guitar, quote, the history of music itself shows us its magnificent influence as a means of transmitting throughout Europe the essence of the musical sound of Spain, end quote. I argue that as an instrument which translates this essence of Spain, composers must have directly confronted their conceptions of Spanish identity when writing their first works for the instrument. The pieces on this program, only the lesser known of which will be performed due to time constraints, are arranged in a particular way. The first three examples by Torroba, Turina, and Salazar deal primarily with folklore. The pieces by Rodrigo and Bacarice evoke the past through early music. And the works by Ernesto and Rodolfo Halfter seek to integrate Spain with modern Europe. Faya's Homenaje, as I will argue, is a work that resists such categorizations. I would like to begin with Torroba's Sonatina because it represents this unified and pure vision of Spain that this lecture recital seeks to complicate. As many of you likely know, Federico Moreno Torroba wrote his Sonatina for guitar in 1922 at the request of Andres Segovia. It remains a major contribution to the guitar repertoire, as it was the first multi-movement work, and indeed the first sonata form work for the guitar in the 20th century. It was premiered at the Teatro de Comedia on December 17, 1923 in Madrid, beside many other works discussed on this lecture recital. Segovia's program for that concert is reproduced in the handout on page 4. Torroba's musical style, however, is rather conservative when compared with the other works being premiered that evening. He was one of the few successful composers in Spain at the time who did not study abroad, choosing instead to stay in Madrid and craft his skills composing zarzuelas, or Spanish comic semi-operas, which was a vocation for only the most bourgeois light music composers. In fact, the biographers of Torroba, Walter Aaron Clark and William Craig Krauss, describe the man and his music as, quote, unapologetically bourgeois, end quote, and indicate that his music was cultivated intentionally to be marketed. And they don't say this in a negative way at all. This led many music critics to refer to Torroba as a madrileño castizo, or a pure inhabitant of Madrid. They said this because the entire zarzuela industry and bourgeois middle-class lifestyle of the 1920s was centrally located in Madrid, more or less. The term castizo is, I believe, intentionally connotative of Miguel de Unamuno. Torroba, an unapologetic nationalist and monarchist throughout his life, was quite vocal about his belief in the existence of a pure Spanish soul that was to be found in the long monarchical history of Castile as the central cultural and political powerhouse of Spain. The first movement of the Sonatina is an excellent example of Torroba's castissimo style, as it was, in Torroba's own words, inspired by, quote, Segovia's own art and a cadence with a typical Castilian flavor, end quote. The first theme, repeated often, is based on the rhythm of a Castilian seguidilla, which can be seen on page 5 of the handout. This folkloric rhythm, in addition to the frequent use of lowered sixth scale degree, is, as Clark and Krauss note, most likely the typically Castilian flavor Torroba referred to. While this piece received a lot of praise in Spain and abroad, Adolfo Salazar, mouthpiece of the musical modernists in Spain, took issue with this simple bourgeois vision Torroba portrayed. Following the premiere, he wrote in a review, rather chauvinistically, that, quote, we only feel it our duty to warn Señor Torroba of the dangerous proximity of those little pieces to the genre of lovely embellishment, of the music for young ladies. And I believe that it is certainly not the most favorable orientation for a serious musician, end quote. Nonetheless, the work was and has remained quite popular. Torroba's accessible harmonic and melodic style, as well as folkloric evocations, present a romantic bourgeois vision of Spain unified through Castilian culture, or the centralized essence or soul of Spain, as Torroba would have likely referred to it as. Moving on to Joaquin Turina's Sevillanas, Turina's style in general evokes Spanish folklore as well, but of a very different kind than Torroba's. A native of Sevilla, Turina primarily uses Andalusian folk music, and more specifically flamenco, in his first work for the guitar, Sevillana, premiered alongside Torroba's Sonatina in 1923. Sevillana is based on a dance form of the same name native to Sevilla. It is often described as a local variant of the Castilian seguidilla, and while not strictly a flamenco form, it has been adopted by the genre. That being said, Turina's Sevillana imitates the flamenco guitar in many ways. The work begins with robust rasgueados and is followed by another flamencoism, scale passages played entirely with the thumb, or intended to be, on the bass strings, for a certain strength of sound. Additionally, this work is replete with Andalusian cadences and Frisian clichés. It seems odd at first that Turina would choose to write and Segovia would choose to play a piece that further conflates the flamenco and classical guitar in a time when many composers and performers like Segovia were trying to distance the two genres, associating the classical guitar more with the prestige of early aristocratic music of Spain, or with modern artistic trends in Europe. Turina was, however, much like Torroba, a romantic composer at heart who believed that music should be about, to quote Turina, feeling and emotion and not polytonal acrobatics. Instead, he had nothing but disdain for the emotional distance of modern art characterized by Ortega and championed by the Grupo de los Ocho. He even went as far to call such music an illness in Spanish culture, which echoes the rhetoric of General Franco and his followers, and when they would begin to use that in the 1930s, referring to foreign intellectual trends that they thought were corrupting the essence of Spain. Turina, like Torroba, was a nationalist and believed in the centralization of the Spanish state. While flamenco may have been previously considered a regional folk art, by the 1920s it was a commercial and popular art form that had a vibrant life in the Madrid cafes as well as abroad. While there was and still remains some contestation about flamenco's representation as a national art form, it nonetheless came to be ubiquitously regarded as essentially Spanish, as General Franco's endorsement would make clear during his dictatorship. Turina's Sevillana, therefore, claims a Spanish identity that was already familiar and accepted in most of Europe, including most of Spain itself. This image, however, was not popular among modernists, who tried strenuously to distance Spanish identity from Andalusian clichés, as we will hear most clearly in the works of Salvador Bacarice, Ernesto, and Rodolfo Halfter. Adolfo Salazar's Romancillo was premiered along the same concert as our last two works, and was dedicated to Isabella Garcia Lorca, younger sister of the poet Federico Garcia Lorca, who was a close friend of Salazar's. According to Angelo Gilardino, director of the Andres Segovia Archive, it was originally written as 3 separate short works entitled Romancillo, Bolarito, and Sevillanas del Gato, and only later compiled as one continuous work under the title Romancillo. These sections were divided, the sections divided are presented on your handout on page 6. The original titles offer valuable insight into Salazar's musical conception of identity and the guitar. The diminutive and humorous titles such as Little Bolero and The Cat's Sevillanas, and the disjunct and rapid transitions between disparate sections imply the type of emotional distance and playful qualities of modern art that Ortega endorsed. Lastly, Lorca and Salazar were both avid enthusiasts of folklore from both contemporary and historical sources. The primitivist strand of modernism's conflation of ancient and folk is abundantly clear in both Lorca's work and Salazar's Romancillo. Salazar even uses the same melody as one of Lorca's folk song settings, Los Cuatros Muleros, which was an old muleteer's work song from Andalusia, which first presents itself in A major in the middle of the work, and later at the end of the work in counterpoint with the Bolarito theme in C. An example of this tune and Salazar's use of it is on page 7 of the handout. The mixture of primitive and dehumanized irony and playfulness in Salazar's Romancillo proposes a complex reflection of Spanish identity. Through the guitar, Salazar is putting forth an image of Spain that is folkloric, historical, contemporary, and modern. It is the image of a Spain that retains the essence of folklore but is arranged through Cubist disjunction and other modernist European trends. And now we have the first performance of this lecture. Turning away from popular folklore, Joaquin Rodrigo's Zarabanda Lejana, or Distant Saraband, dating from 1926, was inspired by aristocratic Spanish early music, evoking the vihuela of Luis Milan, as the work's dedication indicates. While perhaps not as folkloric as her previous works, Rodrigo's Zaraband professes a similar nationalistic aesthetic. Just as Salazar's work conflates the historical and the folk, many folk song collections of this era included songs by Luis Milan and the vihuelas beside popular songs from Castile and Andalusia. While not exactly folk music, early Spanish music often had a similar centralizing aim in the context of early 20th century Spain. The Spanish vihuelas of the Golden Age were a research interest of Rodrigo's, and he often gave lectures on the subject across Europe. Rodrigo's Zarabanda Lejana, predating his musicological studies, show a young composer obsessed with the Spanish Golden Age and its music, and dedicated to presenting that image of Spain musically. Rodrigo's preoccupation with the Golden Age was situated in a larger trend of the 1920s and 30s, when guitarists Emilio Pujol and Regino Sanz de la Maza began arranging and performing music of the vihuelas on their concert programs. Rodrigo's Zarabanda Lejana, seen within this context, is portraying an image of Spain quite different from other composers we've looked at so far. Recalling the vihuela and block chord style of Luis Milan's pavans, Rodrigo is historically situating Spanish identity in the monarchic, courtly, ancient, and centralizing region of Castile. An example of this block chord style, at least as notated, is on page 8 of the handout. Rodrigo's predilection for Spanish Baroque and Renaissance music lasted with him his entire compositional career, forming a personal style he would come to call neocastissimo, a play on neoclassicism and castissimo that implies a neoclassicism drawing exclusively on historical Spanish sources. Like Unamuno, Rodrigo was seeking to capture the true essence, or the castissimo, of Spain by looking through the historical past of Castile. Rodrigo often chose to express this identity through the guitar as he considered it, quote, the measure of Spanish originality, end quote. As an early and particularly focused work of neocastissimo, the evocation of this identity is especially audible in Zarabanda Lejana. So I hope you know the work because we don't have time to play it now. Salvador Bacarice's Pavana, as the title implies, also suggests the influence of early music. This differs from Rodrigo, however, in that Bacarice's work is far less literal in its reference and much more indebted to the style of Debussy or Ravel's mystical evocations of the past. Bacarice was one of the Grupo de los Ocho's most committed modernist composers, as well as one of his most committed political actors. He held governmental roles during the Republic and was also active in radio broadcasting, both in Spain and later in exile in Paris. He thought it was his, quote, patriotic commitment to introduce modernism to Spain and improve access to Western art music, end quote. As a 3-time winner of the Premio Nacional de Música throughout the 1920s and 30s, Bacarice was in a particularly visible position in Spanish musical society to contest and put forth his own notions of Spanish identity, both throughout his music and the radio. However, his first musics were scandalized among the Madrid public and even resulted in halting performances to avoid negative press. When guitarist Regino Sanz de la Maza asked him for a work for guitar, Bacarice chose to arrange the third movement of his first publicly successful composition, a 3-movement piano work called Heraldos. The influence of the vihuela pavans, previously discussed with Rodrigo's Zarabanda Lejana, is only vaguely referenced in the lightly strummed vertical chords, sparse melody, and stately meter of this pavana. Bacarice's early work is often influenced by Debussy, as can be heard in this piece's parallel harmonic movement, pentatonicism, and ABA structure that largely avoids development. Bacarice's evocation of vihuela music differs from Rodrigo's in that Bacarice's evokes not a specific time or country, but a more mythological and fanciful past like that of Ravel's famous pavan for a dead princess. Therefore, Bacarice's conception of Spain in this work is not neoclassissimo at all, and it has little to do with the imperial grandeur of the Spanish Golden Age. It is, for the time, a thoroughly modern, European, and impressionistic understanding of Spain transmitted through the guitar. Manuel de Falla's Homenaje por la Tombe de Debussy was the first work written for the guitar by a non-guitarist composer, and while it influenced and shares many features of the works presented on this program, it stands apart from them in many ways. As many of you are aware, the work was commissioned in 1920 at the joint request of guitarist Miguel Llobet and the new music periodical La Revue Musicale for a special edition honoring the legacy of Claude Debussy. It remains one of the most complex and multifaceted works ever written for the guitar. It is remarkable in its reluctance to be pinned down as either primarily folkloric or neoclassical, romantic or modernist, or Spanish or European, more broadly. It seems to sit directly on a rift not only of opposing aesthetic forces, but also dissonant musical genres, expressing the suspended dialectical struggle between the tambo and the habanera, or the dirge and the dance. Further, the decision to write this homage for the guitar was a choice that allowed Falla to delicately balance popular folkloric and neoclassical elements, as the Spanish guitar is situated beneath both of these aesthetic worlds as well. The homenaje evokes the stylized alemans and tambours of the French 17th century lutenists, as well as the lascivious and cliched habanera. Its elegiac dotted rhythms, sighing fa-mi-fa motive, and restrained melodic range simultaneously bring about the mournful cante hondo style of flamenco, as well as the somber, dirge-like tambos of centuries past. Beneath all these opposing forces, the work is itself an enigma. It is both a dirge and a dance, while really being neither. Rather than expressing the ironic sentimentality and playfulness of modern art, Falla's suspension of European neoclassicist modernism and primitivist folklore imposes a much more discomforting irony. Its overt seriousness as an homage and its playful character as an habanera do not cancel each other out, nor do they meld together. The ironic sentiment is found in the odd relationship between these musical genres, which are realized to be paradoxically similar only through a quote from Debussy's Soirée dans Grenade at the end of the work. Falla's vision of Spain is complicated, and his attempt to bridge over the rift between two musical genres, and indeed two musical modernisms, is reflective of his life. Falla himself sits in a historical rift between artistic and political trends of the 19th and 20th centuries. He seems to not only have keenly felt this conflict, but also had the ability to express it musically. Therefore, more than anything, Falla's homenaje poses more questions about Spanish identity than answers. In this sense, Falla is in touch with the ideas of Unamuno and Ortega as they both seek to address the issue, what is Spain and do we find it at home or abroad? Unfortunately, don't have time to play this piece either. This is one of my favorite pieces. But we're going to move on to the Haufter brothers now. So, moving on to one of Falla's most prominent students, Ernesto Haufter was one of the foremost composers of the Grupo de los Ocho and was one of the few who had the opportunity to study with Falla at length. His music, along with the rest of the Grupo de los Ocho, seeks to answer the question posed by Falla's homenaje by more closely relating Spain with Europe. Peacock Pie, or Tres Piezas Infantiles, as it is more widely known in the four-panned piano version of the same year, was written in 1922 and 1923, and ranks among Haufter's first documented compositions. The cover sheet of this work is reproduced on page 11 of the handout. Haufter recounts that he, quote, met Segovia when he was 17 years old through Adolfo Salazar, and composed Tres Piezas Infantiles especially for him. However, as it falls far outside of Segovia's conservative romantic aesthetic, it appears that he had only performed it once alongside the premieres of Torina's Sevillana, Torroba's Sonatina, and Salazar's Romancillo at the 1923 concert at the Teatro de Comedia. At the premiere, critic Jose Subria described the piece as, quote, ingenious and capricious, with humorous inflections and ironic sentimentality, end quote, drawing a clear correlation with Ortega's conception of modern art as a plaything and, relatedly, neoclassical irony and satire. The piece is also subtly polytonal, freely mixing E minor and F major scales, in addition to a few odd E flats. The polytonal acrobatics, to quote Torina once more, and ironic sentimentality, serve to create the emotional distance that is emblematic of Stravinskian neoclassicism and Ortega's dehumanized art. In writing this early work for the guitar, Haufter is suggesting that the Spanish national instrument and indeed the nation itself, is perfectly capable of integrating the most recent European and modernist innovations, and that it is more quote-unquote universal than cheap evocations of folklore. Hafter was not a guitarist himself, yet Peacock Pie was one of his earliest compositions. The fact that young composers would seek to write for an instrument even if they themselves did not play it speaks volumes to not only the new privileged role the classical guitar was acquiring in Spain, but the importance of the instrument in this country at the time. This in turn reflects upon Silver Age Spanish composers' desire to grapple with Spanish identity through the national instrument that Falla had famously said, quote, transmits the essence of Spain, end quote. Rodolfo Hafter, much like his younger brother Ernesto, intended to distance himself from cliched Spanish musical tropes and attain some level of universality through stylistic and aesthetic connections with European art. Like Bacarice, Rodolfo Hafter was one of the more radical members of the Grupo de los Ocho, politically and musically. Primarily self-taught, he initially studied the music of Debussy, Falla, and Schoenberg to find his compositional voice, and would later even adopt serialism in exile in Mexico. His acceptance into the Spanish musical scene was late coming compared to his younger brother, as Rodolfo's first successful composition was his 1928 Sonatas de Escorial, Opus 2, which were formally modeled on Scarlatti sonatas. Therefore, he was still a relatively fresh face in Spanish musical circles when he wrote his Giga, Opus 3, for guitar in 1930. His understanding of the guitar is densely colored by his neoclassicist obsession with Scarlattian form and concision. However, it would be inaccurate to suggest that Rodolfo's Giga is a mere imitation of the harpsichord. Manuel de Falla himself spoke plainly of how Scarlatti's harmonic figuration, based on fourths and fifths, was deeply informed by the guitar. For Falla, true Spanish composition embodied the harmonic peculiarities of the guitar, not the keyboard. Instead, he often sought to express this in his own orchestral and piano works. As Falla and Rodolfo Hafter's composition lessons consisted largely of analyzing Scarlatti sonatas, it seems reasonable to suggest that Hafter's Giga is less an imitation of the harpsichord than an embodiment of what he and Falla understood as true Spanish harmony, colored by neoclassical polytonality from Europe. Roberto Gerhard, Catalan composer and critic, wrote of Rodolfo's music that it was, quote, cold, metallic, and passive object music, and that it reduced form to its essential skeleton, freed it from all motive, and charged it with a kinetic energy that gives it the operational perfection of an engine, end quote. In addition to these stylistic features, the Giga, while structured as a perfect Baroque binary dance form, is abound with asymmetrical phrase lines. The parallels to Stravinsky and neoclassicism are obvious, and much more present in Rodolfo's work than in any other Spanish composer of the Silver Age writing for the guitar. Rodolfo's work is universal in the same way that his brother's may be, in that it shares a compositional language that is not impeded by, to quote musicologist Carol Hess, the, quote, in-jokes and local references in the compositions of Turina, Toroba, Rodrigo, and Salazar. To put it humorously, and in Rodolfo's own words, his compositions are like, quote, speaking Esperanto with a Spanish accent, end quote. In Rodolfo's Giga, the guitar's embodiment of Spanish harmony is his Spanish accent in an otherwise European modernist language. The work, along with Peacock Pie, implies a Spain that is more modern and less attached to folklore and tradition than any of the other works on this program. I would like to conclude with a quote from the prologue of Ortega y Gasset's 1922 book, Invertebrate Street. Quote, "In working towards a solution of political problems, I do not think it entirely useless to place them in their proper historical perspective, and then stand off in the distance and look at them. Seen thus, they seem to clear of their own accord, and take on the form and outline which best reveals their true reality." End quote. In this lecture recital, it was my goal to place these various works for the guitar in their proper historical perspective, and then stand off in the distance and look at them. I hope that my musical analysis, combined with historical and cultural contextualization, has helped to highlight what Ortega might call the true reality of these pieces. Limited as it may be, I do believe that the understanding of political and cultural negotiations of identity through the guitar remains an insightful and particularly rich method. The guitar, to quote Manuel de Falla once more, is an instrument which has always occupied a place of pride in the resonant halls and homes of Spain, and whose history is so often bound up with our own." End quote. As a repository of Spanish history and performance of Spanishness, both in and outside of Spain, the guitar was a national emblem that required the Spanish composers of the 1920s to confront their conception of what Spain is musically. During such tumultuous political times, the performance, declaration, or even creation of Spanish identity through these guitar works was a political act, and one that deserves a more nuanced understanding from the guitar community, which I hope this lecture recital was able to provide. Placing these musical works in their proper historical perspective problematizes the notion of a continuous and eternal Spanish identity by insisting that identity is historically and culturally situated and negotiated collectively. I hope this lecture recital has shown that the factionalism, contestation, and calls for decentralization that had recently occurred in Spain and continues to occur more or less across the world are not at all historically unique, but have in fact been the norm, however suppressed, for at least the past 100 years. Thank you.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the live question and answer. I'm Jonathan Leithwood, editor of GFA's Soundboard Scholar, and I've been acting as virtual chair for all of today's lectures in our research track, and we've ended with a really interesting lecture on Spanish identity from Anthony LaLena. So, Anthony, thank you so much for joining us here.
Yeah, it was my pleasure.
We're conducting this session in a Zoom webinar, so if you're watching on the live stream in Facebook or YouTube and wondering how to ask a question, it actually wouldn't take long just to look at the live chat, follow a link to the GFA site, register, and then you can get into the webinar with a link and a password and start to put questions in there. I thought this was a fascinating lecture, but actually with a lot of music that I haven't heard, Anthony, and I don't know, I mean, it was amazing to hear how Faya's Three-Cornered Hat was somehow condemned as an example of this dehumanizing modernism.
I know.
But on the other hand, think about how much Faya's music changed during this time period you're talking about. And the piece that you played by Bacarice sounded much more like where Faya was headed within a few years in works such as El Retablo. Even if you end up repeating yourself, I'd love to hear a bit more about Faya's attitudes towards this Spanishness.
Yeah, well, I mean, the interesting thing about Three-Cornered Hat, actually, just to bring that one up, it existed first as a pantomime with a different title before it was a ballet, and it was a success across Spain. And then he took out a lot of the pantomiming, bird calls, and and quotes. I mean, he kept the Beethoven 5 quote in famously, but he took a lot of those out and then made this ballet, and that's when Spanish critics started criticizing him for not being Spanish enough. But oddly enough, a lot of the music was the same. I'd say about like 75% of the music was the same between the pantomime and the ballet. So there's a lot of interesting things going on with Spanish critics and their relationship with Faya, and why they would choose to call two more or less identical pieces very Spanish, very not very Spanish. But to get back to your question about what Faya was kind of thinking about the Spanish identity, I mean, it's easy to kind of interpret his thoughts on a lot of these things, but he very intentionally kept a distance from politics, and he didn't write a lot about what he thought about like goings on in politics, other than the fact that he was very anti-violence and and he was a pacifist. He was anti-Franco, but he was also anti-communist. But his ideas on Spanish identity and music, a lot of critics criticized him very heavily until he became very famous internationally. They thought his music was the antithesis of Spanishness because it was riding on the backs of what they thought would have been like Debussy and Ravel. So they used to call him a composer afrancescado, like a Frenchified composer, and that was a derogatory comment. So Faya's music wasn't really considered like premierly Spanish until Three-Cornered Hat, actually. Oddly enough, it created a lot of criticism, but then after that with Retablo and things like that, which is odd thinking back on all of his very flamenco influenced works we know. I think I may have gotten a little off track from your question, but I think just to sum up, Faya did not say very, very many things. I mean, to interpret some of his music, I would sort of say that his stance on Spanish identity was very much influenced by French composers, and which is unlike a lot of other Spanish composers. He was very sympathetic to Debussy's and Ravel's depictions of Spanish music.
Thank you very much for that. Yes, and it's interesting to see that in the context of this kind of intense, very politicized discussion, Faya still really praised Debussy's Spanish music in 1920. We have a question from Kathy Acosta Zavala. She says, "Thank you so much for this paper, Dr. LaLena. Fascinating to hear of these composers. How would you translate your findings and characterizations of Spanish identity to Faya's and Pujol's contemporary, Daniel Fortea?
was so you, sorry, you lagged a little bit there. You said, how would I you say
Just, I think,
Peugeot?
asking about Daniel Fortea, one of the Taraga School guitarists and someone who did do some composing. I think there are a lot of questions coming up in the chat about different Spanish figures, and this one is
Right.
Fortea.
Right. Well, I have to be honest, I know a lot more about Jobet and Peugeot than I do about Portea himself, although I've come across some of his music. And I mean, how he fits in this conversation, I mean, I would say that, you know, and I think I don't want to drag other people into this conversation, into this depiction, but I think Regino Sanz de la Maz's music as well kind of fits this sort of earlier version, like prior to Fayo's shift to neoclassicism, and a lot of these things Bacarice and the Halfter brothers are doing. You know, Fortea and I think Regino especially are really attached to this school of Tarrega, which comes out of like Chopin-esque renditions of like Andalusian influenced music. So in a lot of ways, in the 20s and the 30s, I mean, that stuff wasn't invalid by any means, but it was, as far as in the international arena and like new modernist composers like Faya, it was sort of waning in aesthetic or significance or political significance in a way, but that changes very drastically after the Civil War, and where elements of Faya's neoclassicism that are not really seen in Fortea and Regino, I think, are retained after the Civil War, but a lot of it does revert back to more Andalusian influenced music, and that is for a lot of reasons, and I would never, I mean, that's a different kind of question to get into. I think might take all day. It's a different lecture.
There's a question from Stanley Yates about Miguel Llobet, actually. I'm just asking where he and some of the other contemporaries that you've mentioned already, how do they fall along the lines of Spanish identity?
Yeah, I mean, Llobet and Peugeot, they both were very involved in playing new music in the 1910s and 1920s, especially from a lot of other composers that we also don't know, and I didn't perform on this lecture, like Alfonso Broca and Augusti Grau, a Catalan composer, Eduardo Lopez Chavarri, and so they were very involved in playing new music by non-guitarists, and Peugeot was very involved in publishing that. So I think the tragic sort of history of Spain in the 20th century is that there were a lot of potential zones that, or potential lines of flight that Spain really could have taken during the 20s and 30s, when they had many different types of governments like falling one after the other, and then and then the Civil War, and sort of globally as well. By the time you get to the 40s and the 50s, there's a sort of cap on that. I mean, like things like there were such radical art movements like Dadaism and Surrealism that are really pointing everywhere. They could have become anything. They tend to fall back and become slightly more conservative around that time, and that happens in Spain in particular. So, I mean, Llobet had died then, but Peugeot like continues to publish and perform and write music after the Spanish Civil War, but their level of engagement with I mean, I wouldn't say it's about Llobet because he had died by then, but Llobet was very involved in the music, and then he had passed away, and Peugeot was as well, but he stopped being involved in such sort of various and conflicting depictions of Spanish identity in music, right? He kept kind of composing in this like nationalistic strain, and he had other music that was more Chopin influenced, and then he had his very illustrious sets of etudes and things like that. So as far as how much they were involved in, composing music or performing music that was like offering many different types of Spanish identity, I still like their high point for that was definitely in the 20s and 30s. And then I thought I had another thought. Oh yeah, as far as like performing music, yeah, I mean, Pujol famously premiered the Homenaje, and which was in Paris after the harp premiere. So I mean, he was very involved in this too. I mean, these guitars are very close to these composers in a lot of ways.
Actually, also from Stanley Yates is a question about Antonio Jose, who sometimes gets lumped in a little bit with the generation of 27, although I think he was very apolitical, not very based in Madrid, and ended up in Burgos. But yeah, do you have thoughts about how he fits into this framework?
Yeah, he's a really interesting case because he's not part of that movement that I was talking about, La Grupo de los Ocho, you know, and then those sort of more popular composers that we still know today that Segovia had played his whole life. Jose, yeah, I had to make a tough decision when I was doing this lecture because it's already quite long. You can imagine with all the performances that I didn't do. I mean, it was impossible to include the Jose Sonata as well, and I had to take out a lot of music that I would have covered as well. But the Jose Sonata poses more interesting problems because it was rather modern. I mean, for the time, I mean, it wasn't like Schoenberg modern, but you know, in Spain, the most modern you can be was often, especially at this time, was to be sort of receptive to modern trends via France in particular. And in that case, Antonio Jose and his music was very close to Ravel and not Debussy as much, because you know, by the time 1920, Baia was even sort of ostracized for appreciating Debussy as much as he did, because Stravinsky famously turned against Debussy, and then that was the kind of line for modernist composers. But Antonio Jose, yeah, I mean, very much closer to Ravel, and this also somewhat paradoxically, because the Schola Cantorum is somewhat rather conservative, but this idea of like, there's this idea in sonata theory about like French sonata forms that involve like return themes and recapitulations and other movements, and it's very tightly woven. And Antonio Jose Sonata is very much like that. I mean, think about the last movement where all the themes from all the movements are coming back. So he's really, in that moment when he's writing that piece, I mean, intentionally or not, he's aligning that work with the modern French school. It's a shame he had, you know, died so early, but I mean, he famously was shot by the fascists. I mean, so even if he wasn't exactly like very vocally politically, he was viewed as somewhat a political threat, just like Federico Garcia Lorca. I mean, and he was viewed as quite the modernist. I mean, when he was sent abroad to France to study, he came back. He was supported by many wealthy Spanish patrons to go study in France. And when he came back, they were very upset with the music he was making because it was very radical for the time. So, I mean, that's how he's somewhat contributes to this conversation as a surprisingly, I mean, today thinking about that piece, I mean, a surprisingly radical young member who didn't really have much time to, unfortunately, contribute to this dialogue.
Thank you so much to Anthony LaLena for his lecture and for participating in that Q&A, and to Jonathan Leithwood for moderating all of our Q&A sessions today, as well as giving a lecture. That Q&A will continue in the Zoom, and so if you want to participate, follow the links that you can find in the chat and follow along with those fine gentlemen. We have, this is going to be the end of our Block 2 coverage today. We have many more coverage and many more events coming up for tomorrow. We also have Block 3 coming up right after the end of this stream. So you'll want to hit refresh and load up Block 3. And that's going to be our ICAC coverage. That is the International Concert Artist Competition. So give us just a few minutes to get reset, and then we'll launch that stream and you can view the new competitors. This is our preliminary round for the ICAC. Coming up tomorrow, we have a virtual town hall on diversity and inclusion. If you want to be a part of that, you can find the links on our website. It's also our education track day, and we're going to have several lectures, including from NAFME, or NAFME, NAFME, thank you. I'm getting the nod from my producer over here, NAFME President Scott Sheehan. And we also have the Virtual Guitar Orchestra Showcase. And finally, we're going to have performances from the Minneapolis Guitar Quartet and Duo Noir. And just like at the end of every block of content that we're doing this week, we're going to end with Lagrima. This is part of our campaign #Tears for 2020. And so I get to reveal the mystery performer. And it's actually 2 mystery performers. We have Lagrima, played by Zoran Dukic and Helen Sanderson.